So far we have discussed so many things broadly. Okay, we have not gone in detail, but I think you should have got some idea about what are green buildings and what are different rating systems that we have. And we have also gone into details of some specific strategies, especially passive strategies, and that we can use. And last time we have seen urban heat islands and how mitigation can be, what are the mitigation strategies that we have. And actually the issue of heat islands primarily, and how do we address it. That was our main focus. Today what we will see is, we'll see how building bylaws, zoning regulations are integrated or help in energy efficiency, and what is our national mission for enhancing energy efficiency. Actually, I was planning to discuss national mission for enhanced energy efficiency exclusively, but looking at the content, but I felt uh, I don't think it is that essential. Okay, so I will briefly hint what is this national mission for enhanced energy efficiency. But we will go into one of the initiatives of Government of India on how energy efficiency is brought into uh, the building bylaws and so on. Okay, so the intent of this lecture is to uh, get to discuss on uh, how this green initiatives is percolated down into in terms of regulations. Okay, so before we actually discuss on this, um, see, we may have many ideas. So we may have very good ideas to save energy, or we may have very good initiatives or strategies that will help in attaining certain uh, sustainable measures. However, that idea will remain in paper unless and otherwise it reaches out to the last implementing agency. Okay, so for example, let us say we talk about climate change measures, we talk about reducing pollutions, air pollutions, coming out with better quality of life in urban areas, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these ideas may sound good, it may look very appealing. Okay, for scientists, for the researchers who is working on this field, and of course for academicians who is interested in this subject and want to explore and come out with new ideas in addressing all this. The problem comes when these ideas and strategies is translated, okay, should be translated into guidelines. So that is the bridge, otherwise the idea will remain idea, it will not reach out, it will not be it will not reach out to the concern. So uh, today my intent is to briefly say how this has been done through one of the initiatives of Government of India. Okay. Otherwise, uh, there are so many things that can be said. We will be discussing one major aspect of how do we take the ideas into practice. Okay. So if you see, we are discussing from green urbanism, energy perspective, all that. Okay. So energy conservation was not a matter of priority in 15-20 years from now. Okay, so these ideas were majorly shaped or came into discussions in 1970s. Okay, so or just when the industrial revolution had taken place or was ongoing. Okay, prior to that there was not much discussion about energy conservations, these green initiatives, and so on and so forth. Okay, so in India specifically, if you see in 1977, during fifth five-year plans, the working group on energy policy was constituted, and they came out with national energy policy for India. I hope we all know what is five-year plans. Okay, it is not in practice now. It is abolished by the last government. Otherwise, till the previous government, we had this 5 year plans. So every year, 5 years, there is certain initiatives taken and we set targets to achieve that. Okay, so this was done in the fifth 5 year plan, where a national energy policy for the country was drafted. And then it was the the report submitted by the group in it was actually submitted in 1979. So the intent was to optimize energy use in the country. Okay, with that, the entire policy was drafted. And to briefly summarize, so far what has gone in terms of energy policies in India is concerned, I've taken this from energy building code, energy ECBC, Energy Conservation Building Code 2017. We'll be discussing in detail about it. This slide or this whatever I'm discussing now is taken from the report. Okay, so the all the discussions started in India about energy in this time framework, and we had one initial report in 1979, okay, where national energy policy was drafted, and later we had several subcommittees that took that report and further revised it. Okay, working groups to formulate legalization of energy conservation was formed. Okay, and then there was an energy bill. Actually, in 2001, there was one energy act. Okay, I think I'll be discussing it. Energy Energy Policy Act of 2001 was enacted, and upon which all the energy related related initiatives are based on this Energy Conservation Act 2001. Okay, so and as a result of Energy Conservation Act 2001, a new body was also formulated. It's called BEE, Building Energy Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It's kind of a nodal agency for the country that has taken initiatives for developing the idea of energy at national level and coming out with policy for national level and implementing strategies and so on and so forth. Okay, so it was actually formed in 2001, and they came out with first draft of Energy Conservation Building Code in 2007. Now actually we have 2017 version of this guidelines. Okay, so I think this already mentioned here. 2017 version of guideline is there. So we will be in fact discussing this in little detail. What are the components of it, how they assess it, and so on and so forth. And why this is important? Okay, economic growth is desirable for developing countries, and energy is one of the essential component for economic growth. Okay, and if India is to achieve its desired target of GDPs, in the process we'll be spending equal amount of energy to achieve that. Okay, so for example, let us say now the GDP has gone down. Okay, we are all aware, right? It has gone down up by up to 24%. Why? Because of the lockdown, we are all stuck and nothing is actually moving. So in order to flourish in economy, the country has to grow, people have to move, everything has to be in motion. So in that process, we spend a lot of energy that is taken from electricity, and gases, and coal, and so on and so forth. So we want growth, but not at the cost of environment. So that's why these discussions are in place. How do we save energy, and what are measures that we can take to save energy? But at the same time, we achieve or we aim for the growth that is essential for the country. Okay, so but if you see, we have very limited resources. Okay, this is all we know. Probably if somebody is interested in what is this reserve numbers, uh, there is one book called Limits to Growth. Okay, it's called Limits, LIMITS, Limits to Growth. Okay, this is one of the first book written on how much resources we have in the world, and if we go in as business as usual, how the way it was written in 1970s, then you can imagine what was their perspective. And the book computed, if we go in the same growth pattern, uh, it was actually they predicted that by 2000 we will not have any resources in hand. Okay, so whatever resources, natural resources that we have, they predicted that it will end in 2000. Actually, then they in the second revision in 2000, they came out with a mathematical model for computing this. Okay, so how much is the total energy, not in energy in the sense, resources that we have in hand, what is the population, and what how much is the consumption of the population, and how much is the total energy that we have in hand, total resources that we have in hand. So if we go in this business usual scenario, how much time it will take to collapse? Now, because this is not an end, this is these resources are very limited. It is not. Uh, it's all very limited. It will go down. So there is a tool called system dynamics model. System dynamics. Okay, there is one very powerful mathematical tool. This was developed in MIT, US. Using this tool, the computation was done on what is the total resource that we have, and then how it is how it will decline over a period of time if we don't do anything. Okay, so and this was computed for Indian case as well, where they said we have resources that will last only for 200 years. Then probably we may not have those resources, especially coal reserves that we have. It may not, the life of that is very less than 100 years. We should not depend on that. We should look for alternate source of energy. Okay, that's why this concept of renewable energy, looking for solar panels, and looking for solar energy, hydrothermal energy, and so on, other forms of energy are looked into. And at the same time, we talked about the need for GDP, need for economic activity, for prosperity of the country. Demand for office space in India has gone exponentially. Okay, this is actually one of the report done in 2010, I guess, 2008-10. So where they said of all the Indian office markets, 70% of the sector is occupied by IT, and 15% of the entire sector is occupied by financial and paramedic, medical related sectors, and others by 15%. And on an average, about nearly 20 million square feet of spaces are added every year in country on commercial activities. Okay, so that's a huge number of huge number of burden that is being added to the city, where people come in, new buildings are added, and the city is growing. And how do we assess this? Okay, if we just keep on building and building, and if we if we keep on taking the reserved resources that we have, what will happen to our case? And this is done for the entire country. Okay, this is only for Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. 20 million square feet are added. But if you see the national average, they have computed 55 million square feet of commercial build-up is added every year in the country. Okay, and at the same time, it is not only the workplace that will increase. Of course, there will be increase in shopping malls, recreational spaces, recreational requirements, and residential, of course, residential requirements. Okay, so all these things are compounded. It's not linear. It's all correlated. It's all dependent on one on the other. Okay, so if you see the total uh, energy requirement, total primary commercial energy demand for 2000 and 2004 was around 300 millions of tons of equal oil equivalent. Okay, but if you see, this is estimated for 2030. You can see almost 2000, from 300 to 2000 millions of tons of oil equivalent of energy is needed to sustain this kind of uh, uh, growth that we are encountering. Okay, so if you don't do anything, if you don't have any specific measures taken, and if you don't consciously make an attempt to bring this down, okay, add energy efficiency policies and so on and so forth, getting this will be problem. The second major issue will be we are taking the resources, reserve resources, okay, that we'll be losing it for ever. Okay, so that's why these policies are taken, these measures are taken, so that the impact on energy is down, the consumption comes down. Okay, and also the efficiency, the performance is improved, right from the buildings to neighborhoods to cities to devices, equipments, everything. Okay, policy measures are taken, incentives are given, so that the this is brought down. Okay, so energy efficiency conservation measures can reduce peak and average energy demand. So that is what we were actually discussing in even in the green systems, rating system that we saw. Their intent is to reduce this, reduce energy consumption, peak energy consumption. That's one thing. The second one is it is estimated that if we conserve 1 unit of energy, okay, it is equal to saving of 2.2 to 3 times of fresh energy generation. Okay, so this is, let's say, if you want to produce X quantity of energy, we have to spend 3x quantity, 3 times the quantity of energy that we need. So saving that will save this uh, the excess energy that we will lose in the process. Okay, investment in energy efficiency or energy conservation is highly cost effective. Okay, we have seen in the previous discussions also. Though initial cost of the building may be as high as 40% also. I think I put a number against 15 to 40%, if I'm not wrong, if I recollect correctly. I have said the if you build a normal conventional building, and if you compare that with the green rated buildings, there will be an initial cost, over cost of 15 to 40%, depending on what are the measures that we take in the building. So this is it may look initially it as high on initial investment, but at the longer run, these are very effective measures. And like I said, in order to streamline these ideas and address this problem, Government of India came out with a act called Energy Conservation Act 2001, and there was one discussion on Integrated Energy Policy 2006 also, but primarily everything revolves around Energy Conservation Act 2001. Okay, and there was one, this is latest by the present government, where National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency for Greater Trust on Energy Efficiency was streamlined. The mission was to ensure sustainable growth um, through these five through these four initiatives: energy efficiency, equity and environment. Okay, so how energy is conserved, how efficiently is used, how efficiency of buildings, cities and other things are improved, the second aspect. The third, equity. Okay, so how everyone is accessible to the resources. Okay, and then of course how do we conserve the environment. This was the uh, this was the underlining theme. Based on this, national mission for enhanced energy efficiency was uh, streamlined to address various issues, from building to industries to other policy measures, from the uh, from different sectors by national as well as state government. Okay, so we'll be discussing about the act, not act per se in the sense, but the initiatives of act and how it has gone into the actual definition, actual implementation part. So Energy Conservation Act 2001, through that, norms of energy norms for energy intensive industries were identified. Uh, Standard and labeling measures were taken. Energy conservation building code was formulated. Demand side management were discussed, and certification of energy professionals were uh, um, facilitated. Okay, so through this act, five major aspects came into picture. One is there are certain norms for energy intense industries. For example, let us say high polluting industries. Okay, so we have certain regulations and policy measures where these industries should come, what how they should come. Okay, and what are the implications of setting up those industries. So this act specifically talks about uh, what are the norms, what are the standards for these kind of industries, and how it should be streamlined and brought into the picture. One. Second thing is standardizing and labeling of for products and for buildings. Okay, so we have seen. I think I will also discuss a little bit about how. Let us say this. We always come across when we go to shopping, or some if you purchase AC or refrigerator, they always talk about, so this is a 5 star rated, this is 3 star rated. Uh, what is it and who labels it? Why they label it? Okay, all these things also comes from Energy Conservation Act 2001. This is one of the initiatives of the act. The third and most important that we will be discussing in detail is, of course, about Energy Conservation Building Code (ECBC). Okay, so ECBC also talks about what are the measures to be taken for achieving energy efficiency in building sector, or and of course it will help in urban and city planning as well, but primarily discussing on buildings. And there are other things like training the professionals is also part of the the act. Okay, and demand side management, and how do we manage the requirement of energy from the other side perspective. Okay, so what we'll be discussing is the first one of the major initiatives of the act, that is Bureau of Energy Efficiency, BEE. Okay, BEE was established in 2002 under this act, and it was an regulatory and the intent was to implement regulatory and promotional functions of Energy Conservation Act. Okay, and reduce energy use intensity of the country, and has SDAs, state designated agencies in each state for implementing the act. Okay, so suppose I hope you guys have some broad understanding of what is an act and how it is implemented. Okay, so act is a common for country, Okay. For example, this act, the very act that we are discussing, Energy Conservation Act 2000, it is applicable for the entire country. Okay. So, but it is not. Country is vast. Okay, it's very diversified. Climate, people, the conditions, the economic status, and so many other things. So it cannot be applied in the uniform manner. So we need specific uh, institutional mechanism to implement this. So SDA is one such initiative where each state has this designated agency that will help the state government in implementing this in this act, Energy Conservation Act, and the initiatives of Energy Conservation Act. Okay. So I'm sure every you will be aware that every state now has this ECBC cell, so which directly work with state government on implementing energy efficient related measures. Okay. What are the functions of BE? The process and energy consumption standard required to be notified. They will notify uh, what is the standard of energy consumption and the process of assessing that, labeling certain devices, instruments and equipment that we use on day-to-day basis for its again energy efficiency. Okay. Yeah, I think along with the prescription about the display of standards and so on and so forth. Okay, to notify the users and class of users as designated customers under this law. For example, let us say this is like ACs with BE rated and other ACs. Okay, we can take two examples. One, ACs which are notified by this BE, and ACs which are not notified by BE. So it's like that. Okay, so these are the major functions of Bureau of Energy Efficiency. And apart from that, they also create, apart from creating standards, okay, labeling product, and giving specific recognitions to the collaborating partners. They also do other things like creating awareness program, training programs for uh, professionals who want to work on this line. Okay. Of course, they do consultancy at state level and specific also. Promote research and development in energy efficiency related things, and certification process, developing new methods of assessment and certifying process. Promote use of energy efficient equipments and so on and so forth. Promote innovative financing ideas on energy efficiency for collaborations. Okay, so these are major functions of Bureau of Energy Efficiency through which measures are taken. If you see this, there are certain things common initiatives. For example, rating. Okay, star rating appliances, categorizing the components in the how it is performing. One, or like I said, National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency is a part of BE. Okay, where trade and commerce are specifically looked into how energy efficiency can be brought in under this. Okay, and demand side management. Okay, where how at for agricultural sector how this can be done for each municipalities, how it can be done, and energy efficiency in small and medium enterprises, what initiatives can be taken for doing this. And of course, the subject that we are more interested is on the buildings and built fabrics of city, and how what are the initiatives of BE and how it is implemented in the existing codes, and how do we bring in efficiency through this. And of course, like I said, awareness and training program is also part and parcel of the works of BE. Okay. Uh, I hope there are two things, right? We come across. One is called guidelines, and one is called code. Uh, what is the difference between code and guideline? Can somebody differentiate this? Codes and guidelines. See if I, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Hmm. Can you give an example? Can you give an example for code and guideline? How do we clearly differentiating between this? Or someone else also can give an example for explicitly what is a code and what is a guideline. See, I think here itself there are two words put. One is energy conservation building code and residential building guidelines. What is the difference? Okay, this is maybe subtle, may look more or less same, but there is a subtle difference between code and guideline. Okay, for example, Griha is a guideline. Okay, whereas National Building Code, NBC, is a code. Yeah, please. Right. Right, right, true. Yeah, so code are, we don't have choice. Okay, these are mandatory measures that we have to do. NBC is a code, we have to follow it. Okay, it's not it's not up to us. So, for example, Griha is up to us whether we go for Griha or we have other guidelines also for energy efficiency for getting that rating for our building. Whereas codes are specific things we need to follow it. Okay, so what we are discussing is a code. Okay, so that means it's a mandatory thing that needs to be followed and applied in buildings for achieving a desirable result. Okay, so I think this we have briefly discussed. It was started in 2001. Okay, and then it was initially first they did uh, um, the act came into picture and BE was established, and then initially they did rating for air conditioning and refrigerators. Okay, so it was on voluntary basis and it took 4 years for them to uh, uh, come to this stage. And then later in 2007 to 10, 12 appliances included in the voluntary labeling program. And then in 2010 it was made the appliances were made mandatory, in mandatory labeling in case of room ACs, lights and distribution systems that we have. Okay, it was a kind of a mandatory. Initially it was voluntary basis. The instruments and equipments were asked to follow this. Now I think in most of the cases it's kind of a mandatory. Yeah, it is a kind of a mandatory. And also in 2017, in this 2007 ECBC building code came, And in 2017 we have more explicit regulations on that. And of course it will, like we have seen in other rating systems also, this will change over a period of time to more to more to enhance the code, to make it more functional and so on. It will keep on they will they will keep on revising it, but this is how it has evolved over a period of time. So one of the thing that they do is star labeling. This probably this kind of sticker we must have seen in our refrigerator or in the AC that we have in our house. Okay, so wide variation in energy consumption by product of manufacturers were observed. So in order, for example, we have so many brands. Okay, so all brands are not same, and that's why that's what it is highlighted here. There's a huge variation between one product to other, but the quantity is same. For example, we are discussing 1.5 ton or 2 ton of a window AC. Product one brand of brand X consumes this much of energy. Product one, same brand, same product, Y brand consumes different energy. How do we streamline this? Huh? How do we grade this, and how do we assess that? For that, they came out with the idea of star labeling. Okay, information on energy consumption is often not easily available, and or neither it is sufficient or easy to understand. This led to continued manufacture and purchase of insufficient equipment and appliances. So in order to address this issue, the star rating was brought in. So prescribed limits on energy consumption. Star labeling, what it did was it prescribed how much energy it can consume. Based on that, star is given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So minimum levels of energy consumption is quantified, and accordingly the products are rated. Describes the energy performance. Okay, it tells in what form the energy efficiency is achieved and how much is the cost and so on and so forth. Labels mainly give consumers the necessary information to take an informed decision. So now see, as a technical people who are interested in the subject, we may know what do you mean by 1 star, or 2 star, and 3 star. Okay, for layman, for everybody, they did not know what does this mean. Okay, so we need some agency, or we need some body that will take a call on general public. Okay, and the general public, if they are aware, okay, 5 star means high performing equipment, that's fair enough for them. So accordingly the labels are given, and there are two types of label. One is called comparative label, and another one is called uh, endorsement label. So the difference is it's product to product. Okay, so it's high performing, which will have 5 star, and if it is slightly lesser than this, the performance is lesser than this is called 3 star and 4 star, and so on. Whereas other thing is it's only endorsement. This product is BEE endorsed. The product is endorsed by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Okay, so energy efficiency. So there are two types of label. Probably we have seen all this. Probably in the devices that we have, we see this kind of things. And in some product, they follow B recommendations. What are the to in order to reduce energy efficiency? Okay, but it is only certified. The endorsement is given. Okay, this product follows, but it is not actually have achieved, or there is no set criteria to compare between one product to other. So here we have a number of products, then we can compare. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3 brands, and this is how it is performing. Here we don't have such, but it is only the bureau gives endorsement that they are following the recommendations or the prescriptions of BE. Okay, and there are certain mandatory devices and instruments that we have. For example, room and air conditions here are all mandatory. They have to do it. They have to get their devices and equipments assessed by BE, and the ratings are given for it. Room ACs, refrigerators, fluorescent lights, uh, TVs, geysers, and of course, room air conditioner includes all cassette AC, window, and so on and so forth. This they have kept voluntary. Okay, it's not mandatory for them to get it, but if they get, it's up to the manufacturers and the companies to go for this rating. Okay, now people in fact go for this kind of rating because it helps in uh, the saleability also. No? The product is more saleable if you have ratings as well. So in fact, many products try to do this. And if you see the organizational setup, okay, how B works, okay, we said at each state there is a uh, nodal agency uh, uh, through which the ECBC is uh, implemented. At national level, we have Ministry of Urban Development, okay, and uh, through that they have their own missions and they come out with policies, national level policies on this. And there is a technical wing on this TCPO. TCPO is Town and Country Planning Organization, which is a technical organization that talks about the planning guidelines and so on and so forth. Development of building bylaws, okay, planning initiatives, URDPFI guidelines, something like that. And then we have CPWD, okay, Central Public Work Department, which actually takes up the on-field work. Okay, so how these policy measures are converted into codes and how they are implemented inside. This is how it works at the building and city level. And we have this Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which actually comes under Ministry of Petroleum. Okay, and through that they have established this act that we discussed, and organization has been set up, and they have come out with policy. So both this have worked hand in hand. Okay, and things are implemented in this side. This is at national level. At state level, we have State Urban Development Planning Authority or State Urban Development Departments. Uh, and again, they have TC, Town and Country Planning Board, and so they formulate rules and regulations and they prepare development plans. Okay, so it's like a development authority. I don't know what is it called in your place. We call it, for example, Chennai Development Authority, or we have Delhi Development Authority, DDA, something like that. Each city, metropolitan city, have their own development authority through which the buildings or zoning laws are prepared, master plans are prepared, and they also implement it at the ground. And of course, PWD is again one of the implementing agency for the government organizations. So they work in with along with the government. And also we have urban local bodies where the rules and regulations are different because it is an autonomous body. And they have their own regulations, so they also work parallelly. And similar to state, the country level, State level also has state energy department. Through this, an agency, B agency is set up, and they help in implementing all this strategies into practice. Okay, so this is how the state level and country level um, uh, organizational structure is in place as of now, where BEE gets involved in state level measures. Okay, so we will slightly go in a little, go in and check what BEE says for buildings. What are the how it works, what is the purpose, what is the intent, and how it is assessed. Okay, so the purpose of energy conservation code is to promote minimum requirement for an energy efficient design and construction of building. We said this is the main objective: reduce the energy consumption of building and make the buildings more efficient. The code also provides two additional set of incremental requirements for building to achieve enhanced energy levels. Actually, uh, uh, this entire code is divided into three parts: ECBC, ECBC plus, and Super ECBC. We'll check in the coming slides. And this is basic, and if you do more additional uh, prescriptive codes and prescriptive measures that is given in the code, you will get a rating of ECBC plus, and Super ECBC is another the best performing building or something initiative. So as of now, only commercial buildings can be brought in under ECBC rating. Now we have code for residential also, is I think still in development, formative stage. But we have very explicit code for commercial buildings. Not all buildings qualify for ECBC, B rating. Only a product where only projects where their demand is more than 120 kilo kVA of energy is of commercial project where the energy consumption is more than 120 kVA. Okay, so I think we have seen this in other rating systems also, right? Griha has certain limitations. Only certain products above that is considered or taken for ratings in that. So how the performance is assessed? Energy efficiency performance levels can be looked in two ways. Energy conservation building code compliant building. In fact, three ways actually. Sorry, energy efficiency performance levels are in three ways. Okay, buildings are assessed in three ways. One is energy conservation building code compliant. Okay, here the buildings, there are three types of codes, three types of um, three kinds of initiatives are given in the code. One is mandatory. Okay, if a building follows mandatory and prescriptive requirements, you get the first kind of rating called, these are ECBC certified buildings. The second thing is it is little more than mandatory and prescriptive requirements. Categorization B. Okay, for example, let us say we are taking one initiative for daylight. Okay, for daylight, ECBC, general ECBC, there is one requirement. ECBC plus, there is one requirement. Super ECBC, there is third requirement. Okay, so if somebody follows this, you get ECBC certified buildings. If somebody achieves the standards given in ECBC plus, they get that. And if it is super ECBC, if they are able to achieve that, we get a rating of this. Yeah, Super ECBC is a third Super Energy Conservation Building Code. Super ECBC is a third form of uh, rating that we can achieve. So, see, in all these three cases, uh, it either uh, the uh, the the building is quantified manually, it is quantified what are the initiatives that has been taken and what is the performance of this building, or building performance method, computations methods are used to quantify whole building performance, how the building is performing. Okay, so normally major component that is covered under ECBC is of course building envelope, which includes wall, roof, and window. I think in the first discussion we were discussing about aperture, okay, openings, thermal walls, skins, and so on. So here, if you see, this is a repetition. Okay, it's the same thing, but in a different form. Okay, building envelope is one of the major component that is discussed in ECBC. There are specific guidelines mentioned on how do we treat walls, roofs, and windows, and so on. Similarly, lighting, both indoor and outdoor lighting requirements are discussed. This is actually given in LPDs, lighting power density. How much lighting power density is needed for specific activity, and so on and so forth. And HVAC system, okay, what is the system and what should be the efficiency in which it should work. And also there's a discussion on solar water heating and electrical systems as well. Okay, so if you see all this, a typical energy distribution in a building, if you see, average energy consumption is mm, of a building, if you see, 55%, 55 to 60% of the building energy is consumed by HVAC, air conditioners. So it's more than half of the energy consumption can be achieved if you consciously uh, take correct HVAC system into the buildings. One. And second thing is lighting. Okay, 14% of the energy is used for lighting, and electronics and other gadgets and equipments is left to other thing. But as an architect and planners and the subject experts on green uh, initiatives, our role is crucial in selecting an appropriate system and also in proper designing also. See, we have seen in the second or third lecture on passive strategies. Okay, passive. See, if we are consuming uh, for discussion 100 unit of energy, and if we without using any um, artificial means, without using additional equipments, we as an architect and planners and designers will be able to, if we are able to design this properly, will bring this energy consumption, let's say, up to 80. Hmm? We have saved 20 units of energy in the first place itself. Okay, so our role is now further these codes will help in bringing this down. But on the first place, if we design this building itself badly, if our planning strategy is bad, so of course these things can only bring partial benefit to the build fabric. So that's one thing that we should all keep in mind. The initial designing and initial thought process in planning and design of building is more crucial than later stages. One thing. Okay. Second thing, what this from where all this codes are extracted. What ECBC discusses is not something new. It's not fresh. Actually, it goes back and refers all from the NBC. National Building Code of 2016, that is the latest one that we are using. So ECBC recommends to go back and check what National Building Code says and follow that. What National Building Code says, National Building Code discusses about daylighting levels, how much is the requirement for each activity, okay, depending on location, and depending on typology of building. The lighting levels are discussed, heating levels are discussed, ventilation. It talks exclusively about air conditioning, different air conditioning systems that we have, what is the most efficient things, and so on. And also it talks about thermal comforts and conditions as well, okay. And there is a huge there is one chapter on passive ventilations as well, where natural ventilation is discussed. So ECBC does not directly come out with new ideas. It, it has actually says we should go back to the National Building Code and try to achieve that. This is minimum. If you, this is a minimum standard that is considered. And the ECBC, under ECBC, the building typologies are classified under commercials. Okay, recently we have for residential buildings as well. Otherwise, these codes are applicable primarily for commercial. What we are discussing now is all about commercial buildings and the applicability of these codes into commercial buildings. Okay, so which includes hospitals, healthcare, assembly buildings. Assembly buildings in the sense where all major people gather, it's place of worship, something like that. Business, educational institutes, shopping complex, and mixed use buildings, and so on and so forth. Okay, and in fact all government buildings, it is a mandatory now to follow ECBC codes. It's a mandatory. And of course the residential codes will also follow suit very soon. Energy efficient requirements for codes were derived after analyzing 16 different non-residential building typologies. We said some of the major aspects it refers, you please go back to National Building Code 2016 and try to follow that, the ECBC says. And other things, they have come out with certain numbers, okay. For example, if you want to achieve this, if you want to get ECBC plus, your useful daylight illuminance should be this. And if you want to achieve super ECBC standards, you should have your useful daylight illuminance of this much. So how they have arrived at these numbers is through studying 16 different buildings across the country, and then they came out with this kind of numbers, okay. So spatial layouts, material specification, facade characteristics, occupant patterns have major impact on the energy efficiency, and accordingly by studying all this, these standards have been derived. Potentials for reducing energy use with technology and material thus vary from type, building type, and place to place as well. By analyzing these potentials, ECBC energy efficiency requirements are now sensitive to building typologies. Okay, yeah, it's just same thing, but in different words has been put. It's not every building has different requirements, so it's all sensitive to building specific building typologies that we should keep in mind. Accordingly, we use. So how it is assessed? Energy performance index is generated, computed. What is an energy performance index? Energy performance index of a building is annual energy consumption in kilowatt hour per meter square. Kilowatt hour per meter square of a building divided by total built up area. Okay, so it is a very simple unit. So the total energy consumed by a building divided by total built up area will give the energy performance index. So here to comply with the code, building should have an energy performance index which is called EPI ratio of less than 1. Should be less, the any building, if we if the building has to be certified for BE, then uh, the this EPI ratio should be less than 1. And also all the mandatory requirements mentioned in the codes are achieved. Okay, so these two things are important. And what is I talked about ratio. The what is a ratio? Is a ratio is, for example, is a again it's a division of, this is a new building what we are proposing, and what is the standard, what is the standard EPI to what is the EPI that the new building has achieved. Okay, if this is less than 1, then we are eligible for BE rating. Okay, so proposed building is consistent with actual design of building. Standard building is standardized building that has same building floor area, gross area, and so on. It is same as new building, but it complies, it satisfies all the mandatory requirements and also minimal prescriptive requirements. Actually, there are two things in this code. One is called mandatorily certain things has to be followed, and some of the things are prescriptive in nature. Okay, so this is how EPI and EPI ratio is extracted. So if you see this, this is one example for uh, 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 three set of categories: ECBC buildings, ECBC plus buildings, and super ECBC buildings. So this is an example for exterior building lighting power. Okay, this is also same. So suppose if we are aiming for ECBC, this is minimum ECBC. So for example, let us say stairways. Stairways should have 10 watts per meter square. That's a minimum. If you are able to achieve 10 watts per meter square, then we are compliant to ECBC. But if you want ECBC plus compliant, then the same staircase should have 8 watts per meter square. Okay, and if you are looking for super ECBC, then the staircase, the lighting requirement in the staircase should be less than 5 watts per meter square. So you can see how for this is just one example. Okay, we have said there is a discussion on envelope, there is a discussion on kind of AC system that we use, okay, and so on and so forth. For each parameter, this kind of tables are given, where if you can achieve, suppose if building has to be all ECBC plus, then this has to be achieved, mandatorily has to be achieved. And if you see how EPI ratios for different buildings are given. This I have taken for warm and humid climate because we will be able to relate to it primarily. In even our climate is also warm and humid, and I hope the same in Bhubaneswar as well. So suppose if it is a ECBC asset, the ratio should be 1 less than 1 or lesser or equal to 1. For example, let us say hospital. Okay, so if you want if you have to achieve ECBC plus in warm and humid climate, our EPI ratio should not be less than 0.86, and something on if we have to achieve the super ECBC, and should not be less than 0.75. Okay, so this is how for each climatic zone, okay, this EPI ratio is given, and what is ECBC requirement, ECBC plus requirement, and super ECBC requirement is spelled out in the manual. Okay, and I said there are two things. One is mandatorily we have to follow the strategies mentioned in the code, and there are certain prescriptive strategies that is mentioned that also needs to be followed. And how do we assess it? One of the ways of assessing is, of course, manual documents will be submitted. The other way that is given is simulation of buildings. We simulate the buildings for all these strategies that is used in the building and check whether what is the performance of the building. Okay, for doing that, there are so many tools available. For example, again, this I have taken from the same ECBC manual. There are so many softwares available for whole building performance simulations. So, for example, in our institute, we have Transys, we have IES, we have eQuest, and we have Design Builder. DOE is a DOE or Energy Plus. It's an open source software. We also use this. eQuest is again is also open source. It's all taken from one source only. Okay, so these tools help in uh, uh, generating assessment based on simulations where the building is run. For example, let's say I have incorporated this strategy. Let's say I have incorporated 10 strategies. So this softwares will help in assessing how this building is performing and so on and so forth. There is one lecture I have put planned on this, okay, because this is my interest. Probably we'll discuss and I'll show you some visuals also, how these tools are used, at how it is used at building level and how it is used on city level. Okay, and of course for daylighting there are specific tools that is available in the platform, in the market. Of course, IES, Open Studio, there are different plugins also available, where Daysym is one of the major uh, tool that is used. It's a free tool, open source tool that can be used. Design Builder, of course, is also used. This is a plugin for Rhino. I hope if you know the software called Rhino, DBI is used for daylighting assessment of buildings as a plugin. Okay, Rhino is also there. Yeah, and I think probably this is the last slide. We have talked about how the structure of ECBC at national level and structure of ECBC at state level, but how is it getting integrated in the planning? Because, like I said in the initial discussion, uh, these codes will remain in code if it is not percolated down to last building that is implemented. So what they do is now, since it is a mandatory thing, so if building plan is submitted, okay, so architect has to comply with ECPC codes, okay, and then it goes into the planning authority. They also do a preliminary NOC, an objection certificate is issued based on how these initiatives are incorporated in the building. Okay, and then during the construction phase, again after the construction has started, NOC is obtained whether this ECBC norms are actually implemented or not. Okay, so this is checked at the uh, by the ECBC authorities. Okay, here it is checked by the approving authority. Okay, and it is actually again checked at the construction stage. Fine. Okay, so that's it. I have it for the day. If you have any specific questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can. I have something else to discuss, and with that, we can stop.